And gentlemen, a new series is about to begin with this video, which, although it does have a title, by the time you watch it, I still haven't quite figured out what to call it. But I have decided to sort of give back a little bit to my beautiful students who really do the very best they can, and they cop a little bit of, actually a fair bit of abuse from me, I think is a good way to put it, during my coaching, not because of I enjoy being nasty, but because of I believe that the way how I coach is the most effective way to teach someone when all I have is an hour a week. So this video series is going to be about recognizing and acknowledging these beautiful people who decide to become my student, and in this series I'm going to showcase some of their best achievements, best games. This is actually selected by me, this very first one, but if you happen to be a student of mine and you would like to have a game of yours featured in this series, I'm more than happy to receive some submissions. I decided to keep this anonymous for the time being, in particular because I didn't ask permission from the student to display names and whatnot on the channel. So for the time being, obviously it's going to be anonymous, but what I was meant to say, that obviously the people who play the games will recognize them as themselves. So without further ado, we are going to kick off. The very first one is my student is White, and this was a competition where we have achieved, or rather he has achieved, rather significant breakthrough. Performed really well, played much better chess than ever before, and gained a bucket load of rating points. The opening is the King's Indian defense, and within that we are headed towards what is mostly known as the Petrosian variation. So White pushes d5 in before the Black Knight develops to c6. There are pros and cons with this move, obviously, because of the knight hasn't committed itself to c6. This doesn't come with a tempo, and instead the knight might try to utilize the c5 square. But on the flip side, it shuts down the center earlier, and it's somewhat more complicated for Black to break out with f5 and have a minor piece majority on that side of the board. It is all theory. Bishop g5, h6, it needs to be played. The same student played in the same competition against a different guy who forgot to play h6, which is a big mistake, because it allows White to play knight d2, and the bishop can still switch back to e3, which is the ultimate King's Indian setup for White. So if you are a King's Indian player with either color, you need to know that this should never ever be achieved by White. Or if you are White and you achieve this, then you know that you are doing really well, because now all the pieces are perfectly placed in order to achieve the b4 c5 breakthrough. Not only that, but then the knight from d2 jumps to c4, pressuring the d6 pawn and the b6 square. Extremely annoying stuff, which is the reason why Black needs to play h6 instantly as soon as the bishop goes to g5, so that the bishop has to go to this inferior diagonal. But the upside, of course, is that it maintains a pin. Knight a6, knight d2. These are actually, castles, and then knight d2 or knight d2 first doesn't make a difference. It's still theory. Very good chess by both sides. a3, already hinting that we are threatening to play b4. So bishop d7 was played. This is again double purpose. It defends the rook, so now b4 can be captured twice. But also occasionally Black wants to play a4 to deny this breakthrough with b4, and very often the way to stop it is to play b3, then rook b1, and then b4, still following opening theory. And this is where this move is considered to be inferior to the main line h5. This is a bit unusual for those who don't really know the King's Indian sidelines, because normally in the King's Indian Black attacks with f5. However, here h5 has a double purpose. It threatens to trap the bishop, so White needs to be a little bit careful, and upon defending it with the most usual f3, Black gets then he gets to activate his bishop on this diagonal via pressuring d2, or sometimes even via jumping in onto e3 with a check and then relocating on d4. So this is considered to be more accurate than playing the stock standard f5. And this attack now is going to be a little bit late too, because Now white is ready to unleash, and this is a typical problem, used to be a problem in my students' chess, that very often you would find, and actually this is a very typical mistake on club level, that he would play a move like rook b1, and then I would go, what's the point? Point is to prepare b4, and then I would go like, couldn't you play b4 right away? So that is, once again, as I said, a very typical club level mistake, that people tend to prepare stuff that is ready to go. b4 is the ultimate example. If takes, knight takes, then I simply play queen b3, and we are going to regain the material with interest. If the knight drops back, we simply take this, and the black queen side is falling apart before it could even do anything, before black could do anything on the king side. But also note c5 is a very powerful move, because if knight takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, we have this discovered check here, and again picking up a ton of pawns behind. Simply put, b4 can't be captured. And then we are basically a move ahead compared to what my student would have done, let's say half a year ago, when he would have played rook b1, allowing black to do some sort of attack, and then b4. So that was a breakthrough, figuratively and literally speaking too, because it was a breakthrough in his thinking, and also it's a breakthrough on the queen side. Awesome chess. Takes, queen e7, and here he actually found a motif that I have never come across in my life before in this variation. And interestingly enough, only a couple of weeks later, I actually played exactly the same thing on stream, and I was so happy. And this is, if you are a coach and you think that you're not learning from your students, then you are either in denial or you're doing something really badly. This was an ultimate case where I was so delighted to see this. It's an awesome plan, and it is so powerful. So the idea of queen e7, and again, typical case of amateur's mind, it could really go into that too. Why was queen e7 played? To stop c5. So the right thinking is, does it really? And of course it turns out that c5 is picture perfect for white, because if takes, then after bishop a6, we just take back with the bishop skewering the two heavy guys, GG. Or, and that's the motive that I have never seen in this line before, and the one that I got to use just like it was played in the game. After bishop a6, it looks like black can take here, hanging two white pieces, but not quite, because see, white has got this incredibly clever switchback, bishop c4, securing the bishop and threatening d6 check, winning the queen. Consequently, the knight can't be captured, which means white is going to end up with a piece up. Beautiful chess. And when you see it, it's so obvious and so apparent, but many a player would be too shy to play his c5 because of not knowing how to continue here, or some sort of miscalculation on the way. Excellent, very powerful chess. And for the record, if they do not take, then the usual threat is c6. And again, pawn capture is not possible, because the knight is awkwardly hanging. And finally, at last but not at least, if the knight takes on b4, then we just simply take back, and the usual queen b3 seals the deal more powerfully than ever. Note that take is still impossible, because check, queen f7 or e6 doesn't matter, bishop c4 wins the house. A very common motive. Whereas if the knight goes back home, then after queen b7 we just won everything. But in particular, these two are really hurting. Beautiful, very powerful chess again. So the game was tc5, bishop a6, cb, bishop c4, and this is pretty much where black should have resigned, but he thought he would play on because he has two extra pawns, as if it mattered. So white carried on with very powerful and to the point chess, going forward like I always demand. Knight b5, c6, going forward like I always demand. Once again, testament to how well the student is playing is that all my favorite manias and principles are followed up very consistently throughout the game. Bishop e6 takes, and I don't want to claim it my credit at all. As I said, it's all about them. And look at that. That's such a beautiful play. Kicking the rook out, bringing the knight in. Now we are dominating all the squares on the queen side, and all the three passed pawns are beautifully blockaded. Such a beautiful picture. Knight back. Time to bring in the big guys. He takes the b4 pawn, and now he gets ready for doubling up on the d. And this is where we make the only noticeable mistake in this game, which kind of hurt me a little bit because it would have been such a beautiful coup de grace. And this is also typically what I always tell my students, that when everything is appearing to be on the best possible spot, the position is screaming for tactical solution. Now, because if we have got 2 extra pieces, even if I played h3 here, white would be totally winning. So it doesn't matter what we do, but I like to be an idealist and follow principles at all times when possible. And rook takes here is just a beauty. And the idea is that if bishop takes, then after queen e5, we're threatening with mate in 1 here, mate into here, and it cannot be parried. It is just such a beautiful finish to an otherwise almost perfect game. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but as I said, everything is so winning for white that it didn't really matter. The opponent played on forever, which only meant that we ended up finishing them off with a checkmate. By the way, my student here is in a little bit of a time scramble, so we will forgive him for only executing this also awesome tactic. And the game ended with a quite epic checkmate right here. Unfortunately, here black resigned. He should have allowed this checkmate. Given that he hung out there this long, I think that it would have been more ethical to allow white to finish this masterpiece with bishop g4. A lovely game, a lovely game. I think any player would be proud of it from white's point of view. Can't really fault any move throughout the whole game for white, which is extremely rare, that I wouldn't try to find at least something to criticize. And literally the first point in this beautifully conducted game was virtually the very end, where I showed you this neat finish off with rook takes. So until move 36, my student played what I would call a nearly perfect game. And I'm just saying nearly perfect, not perfect, because I don't want to give too much credit. Right, so yeah, I have to say that this game has made me just as happy as it has made the player himself happy when he played it. A really awesome understanding of the King's Indian Petrosian variation. We have been looking at this line and the strategies and the plans for white for a while, so I was hoping that it would come around sooner or later, but this actually surpassed all my expectations. A really awesome game, irrespective of how much resistance black put up. I thought that this was a tremendous game for white, so congrats buddy, you know who you are. Keep up the good work, and I'm going to hopefully continue this series. I have got a fair bit of material actually to work with, so the idea is to publish some of my students' great achievements. I hope you guys liked it, and if you happen to be one of my current or former student and you think you have got a ripper of a game, by all means send me a gentle reminder that you should be next. For everyone else, thanks for watching. I will be back with more soon. Thank you. Bye.